he never actually won a Nobel Prize, which is kind of wild when you think about it, because J. Robert Oppenheimer is, without a doubt, one of the most consequential figures of the 20th century. I mean, this is the man who handed humanity a power that's, well, it's almost divine. The power to save itself, or the power to completely wipe itself off the map. This is, of course, the line that has haunted us ever since 1945. It's what Oppenheimer himself recalled from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, in that moment. And wow, what a line. It just perfectly captures this monumental, almost crushing weight of what he knew he had just unleashed on the world. So, who was the man behind those words? I mean, was he a hero? A tragic figure? A warning? That's what we're going to get into. We're going to try to understand the brilliant, ambitious, and, let's be honest, deeply complicated mind that built the atomic bomb. Okay, so to really get a handle on Oppenheimer, you have to go back, way back, to his early years, because this was a time that really defined him. This constant push and pull between his incredible intellect and this really profound personal struggle. He was, right from the get-go, just a bundle of contradictions. I mean, just look at this. It's like two different people. Over at Cambridge, he's forced into experimental physics, which he absolutely hated, and he was terrible at it. He was clumsy, miserable, so miserable, in fact, that he actually tried to poison his tutor. Yeah, you heard that right. But then he gets to Göttingen in Germany, which was the place to be for theoretical physics, and bam, he just comes alive. He finds his people, his passion, he's cranking out a dozen papers. This is the core of who he was, this duality that followed him his whole life, just staggering brilliance side by side with this deep and frankly dangerous instability. So it's this guy, this troubled genius, who's about to be pulled into the most urgent scientific race in all of human history. And you really have to remember the context here, right? The world is literally on fire with war, and we're standing on the terrifying brink of a brand new nuclear age. And what's crazy is that just a few years earlier, in the early 30s, the idea of an atomic weapon was total science fiction. I mean, you have brilliant people like Ernest Rutherford, one of the fathers of nuclear physics, literally calling the idea of harnessing atomic power moonshine. The scientific consensus was crystal clear. You just couldn't do it. Not possible. But then, everything changed. And it changed so fast. In 32, we discover the neutron. That was the key. Just 1 year later, Leo Szilard figures out the theory of a chain reaction. And then the big one, 1939. German chemists actually split the uranium atom. All of a sudden, moonshine wasn't moonshine anymore. It was a terrifying possibility. And with Nazi Germany seemingly in the lead, the race was officially on. And all of this leads us right to the Manhattan Project. A secret, massive, and what seemed like a totally impossible mission. And the man they picked to lead the science side of it, well, he was a very surprising choice. I mean, if you just looked at his resume, Oppenheimer was a terrible choice. For starters, he didn't have a Nobel Prize, which was a big deal for earning respect among his peers. He'd never managed a project, let alone a massive one. He was a theorist, the kind of guy who was a total klutz in a lab. And maybe the biggest red flag of all, he had all these connections to the Communist Party. The military had every single reason to just say, nope, not this guy. But the guy in charge of the whole project, General Leslie Groves, he saw something different. He saw, in his words, an overwhelming ambition. He saw a real genius. See, Oppenheimer didn't just know the physics. He got the chemistry, he got the engineering, he got the metallurgy, he got the whole picture. And Groves made a huge gamble that this was the only guy who could put all those pieces together. And the scale of that whole picture, it's just mind-boggling. Get this, Oppenheimer originally thought he might need, 6 scientists. The final project involved more than 600,000 people. 600,000! A whole secret city of workers spread across the country, and most of them had absolutely no idea what they were actually building. So what was the big scientific puzzle they had to solve? It all came down to one concept: critical mass. Basically, that's the smallest amount of stuff, like uranium or plutonium, that you need to kick off a runaway chain reaction. If you get it right, you've got a bomb. If you get it wrong, you've just got a really, really expensive paperweight. And to get to that critical mass, the team basically had 2 shots on goal. The first path for uranium was pretty straightforward. They called it the gun method. You literally just shoot one piece of uranium into another. Simple enough. But for plutonium, which was more powerful, that method just wouldn't work. They had to invent something completely new, something insane, a technical nightmare called the implosion device. Nobody had ever even tried to build something like it before. And this is where it all comes together. All the theory, all the work, it all leads to this one remote patch of desert in New Mexico. This is the spot where science fiction was about to become a horrifying, world-changing reality. Okay, so picture this. It's July 16th, 1945. The moment's right before the Trinity test. And there's this unthinkable fear just hanging in the air. Because a few of the top scientists, including Oppenheimer, had run the numbers and realized there was a tiny, but not zero chance that this explosion could set the Earth's atmosphere on fire, literally ignite the entire planet. Can you even imagine that? Well, obviously, it didn't ignite the atmosphere, but what it did do was create an explosion more powerful than anything human beings had ever seen, the equivalent of 25,000 tons of TNT. The heat was so insane, it turned the desert sand into vapor, which then cooled and rained back down as this new eerie green mineral we now call trinitite. Think about that. They didn't just build a new weapon, they literally created a new kind of rock for a new, terrifying age. And just 3 weeks after that test, the theory became practice. The gun-style bomb, the one they called Little Boy, was dropped on the city of Hiroshima. And the human cost, it's just impossible to really wrap your head around it. In a single blinding flash, 70,000 people were just gone. And that wasn't the end of it. Just 3 days after that, the other bomb, the complicated implosion one they called Fat Man, was detonated over Nagasaki. Another 80,000 people. Extinguished in an instant. But here's the statistic that is just gut-wrenching. In both Hiroshima and Nagasaki, more than 95% of the people killed were civilians, not soldiers. The destroyer of worlds wasn't unleashed on an army. It was unleashed on regular people, on men, women, and children. So after the war, Oppenheimer is a national hero. He's on the cover of Time magazine, he's famous. But here's the profound irony. The man who created the bomb would spend the rest of his life fighting against the very world he had helped bring into being. You can really see this deep conflict in what happened next. Haunted by what he'd done, Oppenheimer fought desperately for international arms control. So what did the government do? It started a massive nuclear arms race. He then argued, on purely ethical grounds, that they should not build the super bomb, the hydrogen bomb. And what happened? They developed it anyway, a weapon hundreds of times more powerful than the first one. And what did he get for his opposition? For trying to warn everyone? The architect of America's victory was treated like an enemy. They turned him into a pariah. He was spied on, accused of being disloyal, and then dragged through this humiliating public hearing where they stripped him of his security clearance. In a blink of an eye, the national hero became a national security risk. Years later, someone asked him about all the attempts to control nuclear weapons, and his answer was just filled with this lifetime of regret. It was too late, he said. The chance was gone. The real moment to act, the moment for wisdom, he said, that was the day after Trinity. And really, that's the question his life leaves hanging there for all of us, isn't it? What happens when our power to create something new completely outpaces our wisdom to control it? I mean, that question was born in that New Mexico desert back in 1945, but it feels more urgent today than ever before, right? In our world of AI and genetic engineering and all kinds of new tech we can't even imagine yet, that question, that's the ultimate, inescapable legacy of the man who became death, the destroyer of worlds.